I believe there's an evolutionary line to the BLS, or at least some sort of story being told, trying to be told. I don't know how accurate this information is, but here it is. First things first, we'll start with the first line for BLS, and that would be with the monster Beginning Night. As you can see, it's a young knight, and obviously we know who this is supposed to be. This is supposed to be the Chaos Soldier. And also, I'm going to be using the OCG names along with the TCG names in conjunction. So, notice the armor patterns, the shield, the sword, these all come into play with the second card. Of course, this is Beginning Night, and I'm not going to say it's a chibi knight. This is more of a younger knight than the knight he's supposed to be, which is the Blackluster Soldier. But there are two, and soon to be three, different versions of the Chaos Soldier, aka Blackluster Soldier. With this Blackluster Soldier, though, that I'm currently showing on the screen, is the Ritual Blackluster Soldier. So, all we've had for Blackluster Soldier, aka Chaos Soldier, has been this image until like 2016 with the advent of the other monsters. Very mysterious, very cool monster. Notice the shield, notice the sword, notice the armor. It's all the same. And especially notice the hair on the ponytail. It is the same monster. This is him grown up, right? Uh, Here is another angle of the BLS, but this is a still ritual form of the BLS, right? So we have the younger form, we have the ritual form, which is going to be the legendary swordsman, which is a very fitting title for BLS, that he's a legendary swordsman, because he's very like ancient, you know what I mean? At least that's the vibe or feeling I get. And again, different angle, we could see how he looks, and it just expands a bit more. But again, this is him in his adult age. Now, something very interesting happens in this evolutionary line is that he goes from being a ritual monster to technically a ritual effect monster, but actually a main deck monster with Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning. Legendary monster, we all know him, we all love him. And you can see how his evolutionary line like played out, right? It's very simple. Young self to adult self slash ritual self slash card self, or not card self, but main deck monster self. And the theming of this monster, specifically for the beginning night lineage, is light. That's the attribute, it's light. Now we're going to go to a monster that's a bit more complicated, and this is where the story or whatever gets more interesting. The next monster is Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Evening Twilight. However, his OCG name is Chaos Soldier of the, I think just of the Twilight. There is no evening part of it, which is very interesting that they added that. But again, take note of the shield, the armor, and the duality of black and light in his theming. This one is not the light monster, or sorry, obviously this is not the light monster. This is not the dark monster of BLS, but actually the chaos monster, which is a little weird to say because they're all chaos soldiers, but he's the one inhibiting both light and dark. And this is definitely his younger form, you know, just starting. I don't know if I should say just starting, but this is him younger. The next card actually does not exist, and that would be the ritual version of this card. This card does not have a ritual version. We'll get to that a little bit more later. This card actually has a main deck, I guess, chaos version, where you banish a light or dark, and this is how we know him as um, Envoy of the Evening Twilight. Oh, I forgot. His name was not Envoy. His name was Twilight Knight. Wow. It wasn't even BLS either. I'm sorry. I messed up. This one is Chaos Soldier, Envoy of the Evening Twilight. However, evening is added. And as you see, what happened to him is his hair is long in the back. Now it even got longer, and it's also black and white hair, which is very interesting of a detail for a character to have. The black is enveloping him, the white is enveloping him. He is a soldier of twilight. He's harnessing both light and darkness. The shield also kind of evolved too, and the sword definitely evolved. The sword's giving more Buster Blader vibes actually, which is really cool to see the sword just evolve. Of course, this is him as a man. However, the next card is actually a non-chaos. I'm calling these cards, these main deck retrains that need a lighter dark monster, chaos versions of the cards. To keep things simple in this video, that's not a technical term you'll hear anybody ever say, but just to keep this video simple, because there's kind of multiple main deck monsters, and I bring that up just to say this next card, which is Blackluster Soldier, Sacred Soldier, which, if you notice, it's actually a purified version of the Evening Twilight Knight, which is, again, very interesting. I think he is a light monster, um, actually. So he's not even an Earth, so he breaks the mode of all the BLSs. The last one was, I think, a dark monster, and as we can see with this one, same armor. All the darkness is dispelled. However, the darkness is now surrounding him in these stars, which is, again, very interesting to see. I don't know what the story is, even though I'm like explaining it. But this is just me, honestly, all this is just me looking and staring at these cards for a little too long. Um, Blacklisted Soldier, they'll never know our love, right? So that ends the middle line, which is the Twilight line. And we are still missing, to this day, a ritual monster for this line. So before I skip, I wanted to talk about the trap card called. Actually, there's two cards I want to talk about really, really fast. And it is, well, you know what? I'm gonna save that for last. Now that I'm thinking, I'm doing this live anyways, but you know what I mean. Okay, we're just gonna go to the last line. I'm gonna save that for last because I do want to look at the pictures and talk about them. Is the darkness line or the dark line, which is more interesting than the other two somehow, right? Okay, you see this guy here? Alright, notice the shield, notice the armor, notice the blade he's holding. Notice his hair. It's like a common running little theme here. Notice his headpiece as well. And notice how he's the dark one. He's the dark attribute one. So this one's actually full on dark. Like no light, no whatever. It's just dark. Now, he does have a ritual form. Oh, by the way, his name is Envoy of Chaos. Um, yeah, Envoy of Chaos. So he later on becomes this guy, which is very interesting. I think he has both blue and like, I don't know if that's his hair or those are like flags. The other BLS didn't have like decorations, so maybe that is actually his hair or something. But this is him. I don't want to say all grown up, but this is him no longer being like a teenager. And his name is Black Lizard Soldier, Super Soldier, or Chaos Soldier, Super Soldier, which is very interesting. The shield grew, the sword became more like, deadly, and this has kind of been the modern day BLS for like a long time until like the other BLS Legendary Swordsman came out, and of course a new one coming out. Um, but notice everything about this monster because it's going to get a little crazy with what he becomes, and I'm pretty sure it's what he becomes. Could you call this an evolution? I don't know. I think it's the darkness overcoming him, taking him. I don't really know. But he jumps from this, and I'm pretty sure this is what he becomes. He ends up becoming the envoy of the end, which is Chaos Emperor Dragon. Notice the hair, same hair. Notice the armor, same type of like design of the armor. It's very interesting to note all the details of Super Soldier and note the details of the Chaos Monster. But as you notice, his face is completely gone and like he melded with his armor. and now he's just like consumed with like darkness. Envoy of the end, you know, because we had Envoy of the beginning, Envoy of the Evening Twilight, and this is Envoy of the end. So the three brothers, I guess, reunited. I don't really know. All here right now, and that is almost a story because we got like two things to talk about, three things technically. Because he has an upgraded form, which is the Dragon of Armageddon. If you look at him, he has blue hair now, which is also the same color as the as Envoy of Chaos. But he's actually been touched with the power of the pendulum because he's a pendulum monster. So his armor is no longer the same color. It's now golden, and the gem on his chest, instead of being red, it's actually red and blue. Unless I'm completely colorblind, that's not blue. Um, and even his helmet, it went from his like helmet having two horns to his not his helmet, sorry, his head having three horns. And also his face no longer resembles the same mode. It's now more of like a mask on the dragon, which is very interesting. But it's not a mask, that's just his face. Which kinda does look like the mask on not the mask, the helmet of the super soldier. So before we finish, I want to talk about one last one. This is a very interesting one, and I think this is of all three of them brothers combined into one soldier. And that is Chaos Soldier, Soldier of Chaos, which is a Link 3 monster. If you notice everything about him, and note, hint, hint, his effect as well, it is a combination of all three soldiers. He gains 15, specifically 15. He banishes a card on the field, and the next battle phase he can attack again. I do think the attacking again part is kind of a little lame. I think it should have been the same turn, but maybe they were just afraid of him being too powerful or something. Either way, if you look at, again, all the other knights, this is definitely accumulation of all three knights. Beginning, Evening Twilight, and Envoy of the End. Though that's a dragon, but you know what I mean, Super Soldier. Finally, I want to talk about we're going to talk about the last couple of cards in the BLS line, and starting with that, we're going to start with Super Soldier Rebirth, which is very, very, very interesting of an implication of the whole BLS archetype. And that is, it's not just one guy, it's probably the same guy reincarnating into different BLSs, which is very interesting. But what also gets interesting is if we add the Gaias to this, which is a whole separate part of the lore, because in the original Yu-Gi-Oh, Gaia Knight fused, and basically, how do I say this? BLS is basically Gaia Knight's like alt form. I don't mean alternative form. I mean like alt ULT. You know, like ultimate form. If you ever played Mega Man X, think about Gaia Knight being a just Mega Man X, but then by the end of the game, you have all of X's armor, and now X is like way more stronger than he was in the beginning of the game. That's what BLS is basically to Gaia Knight. That's like the end-all armor. However, people think Gaia Knight is BLS. These cards seem to suggest BLS is his own person, but through the chaos ritual, Gaia became the Chaos Soldier. Kind of like if I took up, like, I guess, like Captain America's shield or something. I'm becoming Captain America. Kinda, but it's like a Yu-Gi-Oh way of doing it, where it's like, no, you become him, which is very interesting. But we kind of, actually, wait, we kind of do see this with Dark Magician and Dark Magician of Black Chaos. Though we could say, oh, well, they're cards, so of course, you know, you could be summoned together. This kind of goes back to the whole, like, did you see them in the same room type of thing? Because I've never seen Gaia Knight and BLS in the same room together. And it's kind of funny to say that. The next card that I want to talk about is actually for Soldier Soul. because it's a altar with the armor and the soul of BLS. Kind of like putting on the armor and maybe like it's that card and then Rebirth, or yeah, I think it's called Rebirth, Super Soldier Rebirth happens. I don't know actually. That would make more sense, I think. But also, the armor could be coming off of him, and he could be rebirthing into a new BLS. Again, this is also in the card effects. So the trap card lets you trade that BLS to become a different BLS. So you tribute a BLS on field, you special summon a BLS from your hand or graveyard. That's a rebirth process. The Super Soldier Soul process is activate effect on field, discard a BLS from hand, and now spiritually its name and attack becomes Black Lesser Soldier. Just the original one though. The other two cards that have like big implications, but I don't know how to word it. Beginning of Heaven and Earth. It's literally in the name, Beginning of Heaven and Earth, and you have Envoy of Chaos, who will become the end, giving, I don't want to say birth, but like he's birthing a universe. I don't even know. The other card is the most famous ritual spell, which I think the art's really cool. It's of him, Envoy of Chaos, in a different angle from Beginning of Heaven and Earth, and it looks like the universe is actually being created. So like a second later from the first card, and it's the ritual spell that you can only activate once per turn. You send the materials from deck, branded fusion, but like the super ancient proto branded fusion. I should say set Shadow fusion actually, but anyway. So this implies that Envoy of Chaos is the first, but also the name is Super Soldier Synthesis. So that means, because synthesis means like creating something that's not it, right? Like turning an apple into a banana, and we use synthetics basically to make it. It's not real. It's not the actual one. So I'm so confused. Is he becoming the BLS, or like what's happening, right? And then you get the whole Gaias into this, and there's a lot of Gaias. There are day Gaia, there's night Gaia, the polar night, the midday sun. You have charging Gaia, you have arisen Gaia, and all four of those Gaias are supposed to be plays on Chaos and Gaia. Very, very interesting. Very, very weird at the same time. And finally, the last card is the newest card, which blows everything I talked about in this video out of the water. Just says, no, 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 forget about it. I'm just a upgraded version of Gaia. Forget all this crazy lore. I'm just the upgraded version of Gaia, basically. And I do say basically because I mean nowhere in the card it stated that, but like the supports heavily on the Pegasus and Yugi duel. That's why I say it. All of this lore, what does it mean actually for Dark Magician of Black Chaos then? And also, Dark Magician of Black Chaos got a max version. So Blue Eyes has a Blue Eyes Chaos form, and then he has a Blue Eyes Chaos max form. Dark Magician has the Dark Magician of Chaos, Black Chaos, and then he has the Dark Magician of Black Chaos max form as well. This is very, very interesting, and of course, Red Eyes gets no support. But with all that said, and all my yapping, like, comment, subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you watched the entire 20 minutes of this, or nearly 20 minutes, I should say. Comment down below on what do you think about all of this.